What's going on, guys? William Craddock, Will to Win Gaming. There's Dee Dee over there on the couch. I'm going to put her in the video for the first time ever. Today, we're going to be talking about the Treasure Cup Magna Carta, where I went 8-1 with Film Kid. Here's the list I played. Uh, I ended up getting 8th on Breakers, so thankfully I get a Luffy. But so I'm going to talk about is the matchups, then I'll go over in depth in the deck a little bit. And then in the coming weeks, I'll have some more, specific matchup guides. Because the thing about this deck is everything you play against, you have to play fairly differently. It's kind of interesting. Like, on the surface, I call Green Kid the better Zoro because it's just aggro, 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 aggro. But every matchup, you got to play pretty differently. And we'll start going over that now. So these aren't quite in orders. I'm not sure I remember who I played what round. I do remember round one I played against Kaido. My opponent chose to go first, which I believe he should. He ended up not getting an island, so that was just kind of a quick and easy matchup. I just kind of curved Brook Usopp on turn two. And in turn three onward, I think I really just double attacked my leader. I didn't really do much beyond that. I might have weaved in a Basil Hawkins at some point, but for that Kaido matchup, that was pretty much what happened. Round two, I believe I faced one of the three Luffys I would face throughout the day, so I'm only going to talk about them once. So Luffy, I believe, is a pretty easy matchup if you go first. If you go first, I think Luffy will probably win maybe 2 out of 10 games you play against them. It could be less than that. It's pretty slanted if you go first against Luffy because you're just going to play Usopp or Nami into Basil Hawkins into a what do you call him? Where's he at? Monkey D. Luffy 7-drop blocker. I even remember this matchup specifically. I know I played like an Usopp and he jet pistoled it, and I played a Hawkins and he jet pistoled that. And even then after that, I was able to go Luffy into a Zoro, and my board's just so wide. He can't do anything, even though he kind of kept even pace with me with one for ones with the jet pistol. This deck is built to fight that because if you have the nut, you can go Luffy into Brook into Nami, but I just went Luffy into Zoro, and after that double attacks my leader, that was good enough to win. So round three, I believe I played against a Zoro, and if you guys don't watch the channel often, it's your first time, we here don't think Zoro is very good. This matchup was even easier than the Luffy matchup, but you played a little differently because you're playing a lot of board control. It's kind of the same concept. They're playing, rush Zoros and rush Luffys, and they're being very aggressive. You can just play 3 or 4 guys out in a turn and go 5 attack, 6 attack on their board. And by the end of it, they're either going to have no board or no hand, and most of the time it's both. The only caveat to that is if you're not aggressive enough at clearing their board or taking pot shots at their life, then they can chain new gates and beat you that way. It's definitely can be problematic, but as long as you're playing the matchup correctly, I believe it's 7-3 in your favor if you go first, and probably 6-4 in your favor if you go second. Next, I played a Red Green Law. This guy was definitely the most difficult matchup. It's not an easy deck to beat with Film Kid. The only thing you're looking for is this guy right here, Basil Hawkins. I know the other Film Kid lists weren't running Basil, or they're running like one Basil Hawkins. I'm here to tell you, you're never going to beat 2 matchups if you don't have at least 3 of this card and see it. That's Law, and the Mirror if they're playing, Big Kid. So we had a pretty back and forth game. I ended up drawing. I had one Basil Hawkins in my opener, so I kept that hand. And then his first attack of my life, I drew a second Basil Hawkins, and he opted to go second. So I went Basil Hawkins on curve. And, you know, I saw the finals. I didn't see all of it, but I think what happened was the Film Kid tried to play the attrition game with Red Green Law, which you're just never going to win. If you're playing this deck, you're playing against Red Green Law, You are going aggro, you're going first, and you never stop attacking. The only thing I will say is protect your Basil Hawkins. So sometimes you might make an attack with Basil Hawkins to kill a character, but you'll leave him standing so they can't attack him back with like an Otama into a big swing. But I ended up taking that matchup, and he ended up going 8-1 himself. So I think it's a fair indication he was a pretty decent Law player. Next, I think this round is when I played a Whitebeard, and this is where I took my loss. I think this deck has a 50-50 or favorable matchup against Whitebeard. I just played it incorrectly. The fact that he was on Jankbeard, which has Boat and has Newgate, led me to play it incorrectly because he led with Boat, and that caused my first 2 turns we played differently than they normally would have if I knew he had Jankbeard, if I knew he had, Edward Newgates in his deck. So overall, I don't think it's a terrible matchup for the Film Kid, but I just played it incorrectly, and that's when I took my first loss. After that, I played against what I believe is the hardest matchup for this deck is the Mirror, except they're playing the OP01 style, all blockers and Big Kid. Now, if you saw this match, if you saw the board my opponent got out, which was he got 2 Big Kids at one point, and he had 2 blocker laws. You think like how would you ever win that, right? That's like the game over board state for that deck. But I had 2 Basil Hawkins, and I chose the correct turn to. For the first turn, I had the 2 Basil Hawkins. I just went 12 at Big Kid, 10 at Big Kid, and he ended up losing a blocker and 2 cards the first turn. And so he had a pretty huge counterattack on me. I think I went down to 1 life. And on the next turn, that's when I chose to get aggressive. I went 12 with Hawkins, 12 with Hawkins, 12 with Hawkins, 12 with Hawkins. So I think that came out fortunate because I chose the correct turn to get extremely aggressive with my Hawkins instead of the turn before where I chipped in and left them standing so we couldn't kill them on the counterattack. So that matchup's tough. You always want to go first. You always need Basil Hawkins. Again, this card, you have to play at least 3 in this deck. This deck is not good without Basil Hawkins. Frankie cannot fill this slot because you will lose matchups like against Law because you do not have this card. This card is perfect for this deck, and Frankie kind of sucks for this deck, so yeah, be playing Basil Hawkins. So after that, I think I played another Luffy. Same thing, I went over it earlier. So round 8, I believe now we're on, I played against Dofi, and he's a friend of mine. He has a podcast, which I will be on this Friday, I hope. But we had a really good match. He took the lead. He got to go first. He had Perona into double 6K Gecko, which is kind of the nut draw for Dofi. I myself had a really good draw. I had double Basil Hawkins. You don't see a trend here. I believe he would have won this matchup if he had had any Mihawks, the 9-drops, but he didn't draw any. And I was able to stabilize on 0 life, clearing his board and having a blocker, meaning Dofi can't kill you. So that was a really good match. I enjoyed it. Unfortunately, we had to play. So I had to knock a friend down to the chopper bracket instead of sending him on to the potential Luffy bracket. But yeah, I think Dofi is I think it's a 5-5. I think it's a coin flip. Whoever goes first has a huge advantage, in my opinion. In the final round, I again played a Luffy. Obviously, he's 7-1 at this point. He's a strong Luffy player, but I just kind of I got to go first. I'm pretty sure I won the dice roll, so I got to go first, and I just claimed his clock. I remember this match specifically. I was like attack with Kid, play an Usopp. On 5, I was like attack Kid, attack with Usopp, Nami into hitting Luffy, and he cleared my board. He used a jet pistol, used some Dawn aggressively, cleared my board, and then on the next turn I went Luffy into Brook into Nami, and I was like, yeah, it's over. He used his turn to clear my board, and then I just played 3 more guys, so that is a pretty easy matchup. I was on the play, I had the nut draw. There's nothing he could really do, and that's what secured my Luffy on tie breaks. There's actually 2 X1s that missed top 8, so they didn't get Luffy's. But going over the list, I know a really popular question is going to revolve around Barto here. What I tell people is, it's not really his effect that's so powerful. I will say most of the time I pitch this card as a 1K. I think I used his untap once, maybe twice the whole tournament. It's the fact that he's Film and Supernova that makes him strong. So you can find him off Nami and you can find him off Jewelry Bonnie. This is the same reason we included the 3-sword style Onigiri. It's Film and Supernova. Now this card also, I will say, has kind of like this gotcha type deal, because generally when you are thinking about combat math in a game, you're not including a 6K counter. You're thinking about Punk Gibson, plus a 2K, which is 2 cards for the same, it's plus 6, but it's 2 cards. So you're not considering that into your math. And I did win 2 matches off the back of having a 6K counter for 1 card. It just screwed up their math entirely. So that's why we included this, and it's also, like I said, Film and Supernova, so you can find off Nami and Jewelry Bonnie. The only wild card is this Paradise Tatsuka. I played it once, it was good, but it's just kind of a flex slot. This could be anything. This could be a third 3-sword style. It's just kind of this card that is randomly good, It's randomly tap something down and let you kill with Basil Hawkins, or let you get through a blocker. And yeah, that's kind of it. If there are specific matchups, like really in-depth guides you want, you can always check out our Patreon. I'd be more than happy to do videos, because I know this deck's going to become popular over the next coming weeks. But like I said, every match plays out differently. There's nothing concrete. This deck is not like just the quintessential aggro deck, which, it looks like, 5K and a 5K and a 6K and a 6K and a 7-drop blocker. But you have to play it incredibly different in every matchup. And yeah, that's my Arlington tournament report. That's my somewhat in-depth Film Kid report. If you guys like the video, please like, subscribe, check out our Patreon. We have our own Discord. We're going to start testing OP3 here pretty soon, because our last in-person tournament is in a month in Ohio. And hope to see y'all there. Peace.